She was saving the life of a bleeding Korean mafia boss when their eyes locked and everything changed. But the moment Naomi discovered she was pregnant with his twins, she vanished without a trace, because men in his world don't get happy endings, they get murdered. 4 years of hiding in Portland, 4 years of raising Kofi and Taiwo alone, 4 years of looking over her shoulder, and then Minjun appeared at the playground, with rage and heartbreak in his eyes, staring at the twin sons who looked exactly like him and demanding to know why she'd stolen his chance at fatherhood. Now she's trapped between the man she never stopped loving and the brutal truth. His enemies are still hunting, and the moment he found his family is the same moment he put targets on all their backs. By the way, family, if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, you can join as a member or send a super thanks. Totally optional. Your support helps me post more for you. The emergency room doors burst open with such force that Naomi jumped, nearly dropping the medical chart in her hands. 2 men in dark suits carried a third man between them, his expensive white shirt soaked crimson with blood. The sharp smell of gunpowder mixed with rain filled the air as they rushed him toward the trauma bay. "Gunshot wound to the shoulder! He's losing too much blood!" one of the suited men shouted. Naomi's heart hammered against her ribs, but her training kicked in immediately. She had been working the night shift at Miami General Hospital for 3 years now, and she had seen plenty of violence walk through those doors. Still, something about this moment felt different, dangerous. "Put him on the bed, now!" she commanded, her Nigerian accent slightly thicker when she was stressed. She quickly pulled on sterile gloves while assessing the patient. He was a young man, probably in his early 30s, with sharp Korean features and jet black hair that fell across his forehead. Even pale and bleeding, he was the most handsome man she had ever seen. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. Blood continued to pool beneath him, staining the white hospital sheets a deep red. "Everyone out except medical staff," the head doctor ordered, but the 2 suited men refused to move. "We stay with our boss," the taller one said firmly, his hand moving toward something under his jacket. Naomi's hands trembled slightly as she cut away the patient's shirt to expose the wound. She had heard stories about men like this, powerful criminals who controlled the dark corners of Miami, men who were as dangerous as they were wealthy. Her supervisor had once warned her that when these people came through the doors, you saved their lives and asked no questions. "I need to stop the bleeding," Naomi said, pressing gauze firmly against the wound. The moment her fingers touched his bare skin, the man's eyes snapped open. They were the darkest eyes Naomi had ever seen, black as midnight, intense and piercing even through his pain. Those eyes locked onto hers with such focus that the entire chaotic emergency room seemed to fade away. Time stopped. The beeping machines, the shouting doctors, the fluorescent lights, everything disappeared except for this connection between them. "Beautiful," he whispered in a low, rough voice that sent unexpected shivers down her spine. "Sir, please stay still," Naomi managed to say, though her voice came out softer than she intended. Her professional mask was slipping, and she didn't understand why. "You've been shot. We need to remove the bullet." His hand suddenly moved, faster than she expected from someone who had lost so much blood. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, not roughly, but firmly enough that she couldn't pull away. His skin was hot against hers, and that same electric feeling shot through her entire body. "What's your name?" he demanded, his Korean accent making the English words sound exotic and commanding. "That's not important right now. You're bleeding." "Your name," he repeated, his grip tightening slightly. His eyes never left hers, and Naomi felt like he was looking straight into her soul. "Naomi," she breathed out. unable to resist answering. "My name is Naomi." A small smile touched his lips despite his obvious pain. Naomi. Beautiful name for a beautiful woman. "Sir, I really need you to let go so I can help you," she said, trying to sound professional, even though her heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the emergency situation. "Minjun," he said. "My name is Minjun. Remember it." Before she could respond, the doctor pushed between them with medication, and Minjun's hand fell away from her wrist, but Naomi could still feel the heat of his touch on her skin like a brand. She forced herself to focus on the medical procedures, assisting the doctor as they worked to extract the bullet and close the wound. Throughout the entire process, which took almost an hour, Minjun's eyes kept finding hers. Even when the pain medication should have made him drowsy, his gaze remained alert and fixed on her. It made Naomi nervous and excited in equal measure. She had never experienced anything like this before. It felt dangerous, like standing at the edge of a cliff and wanting to jump. When they finally finished stitching him up, Naomi stepped back, her scrub splattered with his blood. She expected to feel relieved that the procedure was over, but instead, she felt strangely empty, like something important was already slipping away. "He needs to stay for observation," the doctor announced, "at least 24 hours. The two suited men immediately protested, but Minjun raised his uninjured hand to silence them. "I'll stay," he said, his eyes still locked on Naomi, "but only if she takes care of me." The doctor frowned. "That's not how we assign—" "I insist," Minjun interrupted, his voice carrying an authority that made even the doctor hesitate. "Naomi will be my nurse, or I leave right now." Naomi's supervisor, a tired woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, pulled her aside while the doctor argued with Minjun's men. "Do you know who that man is?" she whispered urgently. "A patient," Naomi replied, though her stomach twisted with anxiety. "He's Minjun Park. He runs half the underground business in this city. Drugs, weapons, protection. The police have been trying to catch him for years, but he's too smart, too connected." Mrs. Rodriguez gripped Naomi's arm. "Be very careful around him. Men like that are extremely dangerous." Naomi nodded, but even as fear crept through her chest, another feeling was growing stronger. Curiosity, attraction, something wild and reckless that she had never felt before in her careful, orderly life. They moved Minjun to a private room on the 3rd floor, away from the other patients. Naomi checked his vital signs every hour throughout the night. Each time she entered his room, she found him awake, watching the door as if waiting for her. Around 3 in the morning, when the hospital was at its quietest, Naomi came in to change his bandages. Minjun was sitting up in bed despite her previous instructions to rest. The hospital gown hung loose on his frame, revealing smooth skin and defined muscles that spoke of physical discipline and strength. "You don't follow instructions well," Naomi said, trying to keep her voice light and professional. "I follow instructions I agree with," Minjun replied with a slight smile. "And I don't agree that I need to lie down like an invalid." Naomi approached the bed, her medical kit in hand. "You were shot less than 6 hours ago. You've lost a lot of blood. You need rest." "I need many things," Minjun said quietly, his eyes travelling slowly over her face. "Rest is not at the top of that list." The way he looked at her made Naomi's breath catch. There was hunger in his gaze, raw and unmistakable. She had been admired by men before, but never like this. Never with such intensity that it felt like physical touch. "Let me check your wound," she said, moving closer, despite every instinct telling her to maintain distance. As she carefully peeled back the bandage, Minjun's hand came up again, this time gently touching a loose curl of her hair that had escaped from her ponytail. Naomi froze, hyper-aware of how close they were. How alone they were in this dim room. "You have beautiful hair," he murmured, "like silk." "Mr. Park." "Minjun," he corrected softly. "Say my name, Naomi." The way he said her name with that accent made her knees feel weak. This was wrong, so wrong. He was a patient, a criminal, a dangerous man from a world she wanted nothing to do with. But when she looked into his eyes, she didn't see a criminal. She saw loneliness, pain that had nothing to do with the bullet wound, a hunger not just for her body, but for connection, for something real in what she suspected was a very fake world. "Minjun," she whispered, and watched his eyes darken with desire. He pulled her closer, his hand sliding from her hair to cup her cheek. His thumb traced her bottom lip, and Naomi's whole body trembled. She knew she should step back, should leave the room, should report this to her supervisor, but she was frozen, caught in this impossible moment. "I'm going to see you again," Minjun promised, his voice low and certain. "After I leave this hospital, I'm coming back for you. Tell me you understand." Naomi's mind screamed warnings, but her heart was beating a different rhythm. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "I know that you're kind, that you're strong, that you touch me like I'm a man and not a monster. I know that when you look at me, I feel something I've never felt before." His thumb was still on her lip, and without thinking, Naomi's tongue touched it gently. Minjun's breath hitched, and the air between them crackled with electricity. Then footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Naomi jerked back, her professional mask snapping into place just as another nurse poked her head in to check on them. For the rest of the night, Naomi avoided Minjun's room, sending other nurses to check on him, but she could feel his presence like a magnetic pull, and she knew with absolute certainty that this wasn't over. When her shift ended at dawn, she found an expensive black card waiting at the nurse's station with her name written on it in elegant handwriting. On the back, just a phone number, nothing else. Naomi stared at that card for a long moment, her thumb running over the embossed numbers. Then she slipped it into her pocket and walked out into the Miami morning, knowing that her careful, safe life had just been turned completely upside down by a man with midnight eyes and a dangerous smile. She told herself she would throw the card away. She told herself she would forget about Minjun Park and his intense gaze. She told herself a lot of things, but 3 days later, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number that simply said, "I told you I'd come back for you," Naomi found herself smiling as her heart raced with terrified excitement. Naomi ignored the first text message, and the second, and the third. For 5 days she pretended that Minjun Park didn't exist, that their encounter had been nothing more than a strange moment during a chaotic night shift. She threw herself into her work, picked up extra shifts, and avoided thinking about those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her. On the 6th day, she walked out of the hospital after a long shift to find him leaning against a sleek black car in the parking lot. He wore a perfectly tailored dark suit that probably cost more than she made in 3 months, and he held a bouquet of white roses so large she could smell their perfume from 20 feet away. "You haven't been answering my messages," Minjun said as she approached, his tone amused rather than angry. "I've been busy," Naomi replied, trying to walk past him. Her heart was already racing traitorously fast. He stepped smoothly into her path, holding out the roses. "Too busy for flowers?" "I don't want your flowers. I don't want anything from you." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. Minjun's smile faded slightly. "You're afraid of me." "I'm smart enough to stay away from dangerous men," Naomi corrected, crossing her arms over her chest. "I would never hurt you." he said quietly, with such intensity that Naomi almost believed him. I know what I am. I know the things I've done. But with you, I want to be different. I want to be better. Something in his voice made her pause. She had spent 5 years in Miami taking care of people, and she had developed good instincts about when someone was lying. Minjun wasn't lying. He genuinely meant what he said, and that somehow made him even more dangerous. Go home, Minjun, she said softly. Find someone from your own world. I'm just a simple nurse who wants a quiet life. There's nothing simple about you, he countered, and I don't want someone from my world. I want you. Before she could respond, he pressed the roses into her hands, got into his car, and drove away. Naomi stood there holding the flowers, feeling confused and frustrated and excited all at once. When she got home to her small apartment, she put the roses in water, even though she told herself she shouldn't. The next day there was a gift basket waiting at the nurse's station, expensive chocolates, imported teas, and a handwritten note that said, I'm patient, I can wait. The day after that, lunch was delivered from the best restaurant in Miami. The day after that, a donation was made to the hospital in her name, enough to fund medical supplies for the entire pediatric ward for a year. Girl, whoever is courting you has serious money, her co-worker Jennifer said, eyeing the latest delivery of exotic flowers. Is he single? Does he have a brother? Naomi didn't answer. She was too busy trying to figure out how to handle a man who clearly didn't understand the word no. Except, if she was honest with herself, she hadn't actually said no. Not really. She had said it was dangerous, that she should stay away, but she hadn't said she didn't want him. 2 weeks after that night in the hospital, Naomi finished her shift and found Minjun waiting in the parking lot again. This time she didn't try to walk past him. Why won't you leave me alone? She asked, but there was no anger in her voice, just exhaustion and confusion. Because in my entire life, I've never felt what I felt when I looked at you. Minjun said simply, I've had everything money can buy, power, respect, fear. But I've never had peace, until I saw your face. Naomi's resolve crumbled a little more. You don't even know me. Then let me know you. Have dinner with me. One dinner, that's all I ask. If afterward you tell me to leave you alone, I will. She knew it was a mistake. She knew she was opening a door that should stay locked forever. But Naomi was tired of being careful, tired of working long shifts and going home to an empty apartment, tired of dating safe, boring men who made her feel nothing. One dinner, she agreed, and watched his face transform with a smile that made her stomach flip. Minjun took her to a private restaurant on the top floor of a building overlooking Biscayne Bay. The entire space had been reserved just for them, with candles flickering on a table set with fine china and crystal glasses. Soft music played in the background, and the view of Miami at night sparkled like diamonds. This is too much, Naomi whispered as he pulled out her chair. Nothing is too much for you. Minjun replied, sitting across from her. In the candlelight, he looked younger, less dangerous, almost vulnerable. They talked for hours. Minjun told her about growing up in Seoul, about a father who ran a legitimate business until rival gangs killed him when Minjun was only 16, about having to choose between dying or becoming harder, colder, more ruthless than anyone else, about building an empire on violence, because it was the only way to survive. I never wanted this life, he said quietly, staring into his wineglass. But once you're in, there's no way out. The things I've done, the choices I've made, they don't wash off. Naomi reached across the table and placed her hand over his. Everyone has regrets. Everyone wishes they could change their past. Minjun's fingers intertwined with hers, and that electric connection sparked between them again, stronger than before. When I'm with you, I can imagine a different life. A better one. After dinner, they walked along the Miami beach, their shoes in their hands, the warm water lapping at their feet. The moon was full and bright, turning the ocean silver. Minjun told her about his mother, who had died when he was young, and how he still remembered her singing Korean lullabies. Naomi told him about Nigeria, about leaving everything familiar to build a new life in America, about the loneliness of being far from family. When he drove her home, Minjun walked her to her apartment door like a gentleman, but the air between them was thick with unspoken desire. Naomi's hand trembled as she tried to unlock her door. "Can I see you again?" Minjun asked, standing close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. "This is crazy," Naomi breathed. "We're from completely different worlds." "I don't care about worlds," he said, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. "I care about you." Then he kissed her, and Naomi's entire world tilted. His lips were soft but demanding, tasting like wine and promises. She gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until she was pressed against her door, her fingers tangled in his hair, her body on fire. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minjun rested his forehead against hers. "Tell me you feel this too. Tell me I'm not crazy." "You're crazy," Naomi whispered. "And so am I, because I can't stop thinking about you." That first kiss led to a second date, then a third. Within a month, they were seeing each other almost every night. Minjun would pick her up after her shifts, and they would drive along the coast with the windows down, talking about everything and nothing. He taught her Korean words, laughing when she mispronounced them. She taught him how to cook Nigerian jollof rice in her tiny kitchen, their bodies bumping together in the small space in ways that had nothing to do with cooking. Their first night together happened 6 weeks after that initial dinner. Minjun had invited her to his penthouse apartment, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive art on the walls. But Naomi barely noticed the luxury, she only noticed him. "I've never brought anyone here," Minjun said as he poured them wine. "This is my private space, my real home." "Why me?" Naomi asked, accepting the glass. Minjun set down his wine and moved closer to her, his hands settling on her waist. "Because you see me, the real me, not the boss, not the criminal, not the monster, just me." When he kissed her this time, there was no holding back. Weeks of tension and desire exploded between them. Minjun lifted her easily, carrying her to his bedroom while their lips never separated. He laid her on his bed like she was something precious and breakable, his hands trembling slightly as he undressed her. "You're so beautiful," he whispered in Korean, then in English. "So perfect." Naomi pulled him down to her, tired of gentleness, wanting the passion that had been building between them since that first night in the hospital. Minjun groaned against her neck, his control snapping. Their bodies came together with desperate urgency, all heat and need and overwhelming sensation. Later, as they lay tangled together in his sheets, Minjun traced patterns on her bare shoulder. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know it's too soon. I know it's crazy. But I love you, Naomi." Tears pricked her eyes because she felt it too. This impossible love that made no sense. "I love you too," she whispered back, "even though I shouldn't." "Forget about should," Minjun said, pulling her closer. "Just be with me. That's all that matters." For 3 months, Naomi lived in a beautiful dream. Minjun treated her like a queen, showering her with affection and attention. He took her to private beaches and exclusive restaurants. He bought her gifts she protested were too expensive but secretly loved. He made love to her with a passion and tenderness that left her breathless and trembling. But more than the physical pleasure, Minjun gave her something she had never expected: emotional intimacy. In her arms, this powerful, dangerous man became vulnerable. He shared his fears, his regrets, his secret dreams of leaving his criminal life behind. He whispered Korean endearments into her skin, words like "ne sarang" and "jagia" that she learned meant "my love" and "honey." Naomi's apartment became their sanctuary. Minjun would show up after midnight, exhausted from whatever dark business he conducted, and she would hold him while he slept. Sometimes he had nightmares, waking up with violent jerks, and she would soothe him back to sleep with gentle touches and soft singing. "You make me feel human again," Minjun told her one night as they lay together, the Miami city lights filtering through her curtains, like I'm more than just the things I've done. But reality has a way of intruding on dreams. 4 months into their relationship, Naomi began noticing things. The way Minjun's men watched her with suspicious eyes when she visited his penthouse. The tension in his shoulders when his phone rang at odd hours. The times he came to her with fresh bruises he tried to hide. One night, she woke up to find him standing by her window, staring out at the street below with such intensity that it frightened her. "What's wrong?" she asked, wrapping a sheet around herself. "I should have stayed away from you," Minjun said without turning around. "I've put a target on your back just by loving you." "What do you mean?" He finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes made her chest tighten. "My enemies know about you now. They know you're important to me. That makes you a weapon they can use against me." Fear crept up Naomi's spine, cold and unwelcome. "Then we'll be careful. We'll keep things private." "It's too late for that," Minjun said. "Someone took photos of us together. They sent them to me as a warning." Naomi's hand instinctively went to her stomach, though she didn't understand why. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that loving you might be the most selfish thing I've ever done," Minjun said, his voice breaking. "Because in my world, love is a weakness, and people I care about get hurt." He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "But I can't let you go," he whispered fiercely. "I won't. We'll figure this out. I'll protect you. I swear it." Naomi held him back just as tightly, fear and love warring in her heart. She had known from the beginning that this relationship was dangerous, but now, wrapped in Minjun's desperate embrace, she realized just how dangerous it truly was, and somewhere deep inside, in a place she hadn't yet acknowledged, a new life was already beginning to grow, a life that would change everything. Naomi stared at the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. She sat on the cold bathroom floor of her apartment, 3 more tests scattered around her, all showing the same result: pregnant. Her first emotion was pure joy. A baby. Minjun's baby. She pressed her hand against her still flat stomach and imagined telling him, imagine the smile that would light up his handsome face. For a beautiful moment, she let herself dream of a future where they were a real family. Then reality crashed down like a wave of ice water. Minjun's world was built on violence and death. Just last week, she had bandaged his bruised ribs after what he called a business disagreement. 2 weeks before that, he had shown up at her door at 3 a.m, blood on his shirt that wasn't his own. He never told her details, but she wasn't stupid. She knew what kind of business he conducted in the shadows of Miami. A baby would be a weakness, a target, something his enemies could use to destroy him. Naomi called her doctor the next morning and scheduled an appointment. When the ultrasound technician moved the wand across her belly a week later, Naomi heard 2 heartbeats instead of 1. "Congratulations," the technician said with a warm smile. "You're having twins." Twins. 2 babies. 2 lives that would be in constant danger if she stayed with Minjun. That night, she lay in Minjun's arms in his penthouse bed, their bodies still warm from making love. He was tracing lazy patterns on her bare back, completely relaxed in a way he only was with her. She wanted to tell him. The words sat on her tongue, desperate to come out. "I need to tell you something." She started. Minjun's phone rang before she could continue. He groaned and reached for it. Checking the screen, his entire body went rigid. "I have to take this," he said, kissing her forehead before getting up and walking to his office. But he didn't close the door completely, and his apartment was so quiet that voices carried. Naomi didn't mean to eavesdrop. She was going to put a pillow over her head and wait for him to return. But then she heard a name that made her blood run cold. "Both of them!" Minjun's voice was sharp with anger. "When?" A pause while the person on the other end spoke. "Sung-ho and Dae-jung were my most trusted men," Minjun continued, his voice dropping to something dangerous and cold. "Someone leaked their location. Someone told the Hernandez cartel exactly where they would be." Another pause. "I don't care about the shipment. I care that 2 of my brothers are dead because someone betrayed us." Minjun's voice cracked slightly on the last word. "Find out who talked. I want names by tomorrow." Naomi's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She had met Sung-ho and Dae-jung. They had been kind to her, respectful, protective even. They had joked and laughed when she visited the penthouse. Now they were dead, murdered because of the life Minjun lived. "Their families?" Minjun asked after another long silence. "Make sure they're protected. Move them to the safe houses tonight. If the Hernandez cartel knows about Sung-ho and Dae-jung, they might know about the families too. The families. Children. Innocent people who were targets simply because they loved someone in this dark world." Naomi's hand moved to her stomach. 2 babies. 2 innocent lives that would always be in danger. 2 children who might end up like Sung-ho and Dae-jung's kids, hiding in safe houses, living in constant fear. When Minjun returned to bed 30 minutes later, his face was carved from stone. He pulled Naomi against him, holding her tighter than usual, almost desperately. "I lost 2 good men tonight," he said quietly. 2 friends. "I'm sorry," Naomi whispered, her heart breaking for him even as terror filled her veins. "This is my life." Minjun continued, his voice rough. "Death and violence and betrayal. It never stops, Naomi, never. I keep thinking maybe one day I can walk away, but the truth is that I'm trapped in this world until it kills me." "Don't say that," Naomi said, tears sliding down her cheeks. "It's true, and the worst part is that I've dragged you into it. Just by loving you, I've made you a target. If anything ever happened to you because of me, I couldn't survive it." Naomi held him as he fell asleep, but she didn't close her own eyes. She stared at the ceiling, her mind racing, her hand resting protectively over her stomach where 2 tiny lives were growing. She thought about Sung-ho and Dae-jung, about their families hiding in safe houses, about the constant danger that surrounded Minjun like a dark cloud, about what kind of life her children would have if she stayed. By the time dawn light started filtering through the windows, Naomi had made her decision. It was the hardest decision of her entire life, one that felt like ripping her own heart out. But it was the only way to keep her babies safe. She waited until Minjun was deeply asleep, his face peaceful in a way it only was when he was with her. Naomi memorized every line of his face, every feature that she already saw in the ultrasound images of their twins. She wanted to kiss him goodbye, but she was afraid she would break down and confess everything. Instead, she carefully slipped out of bed and dressed silently. She had been planning this for 2 days, ever since the ultrasound confirmed twins. A bag was already packed and hidden in her car. She had saved money. She had researched cities far from Miami. Naomi wrote a note, because she couldn't just disappear without any explanation. But she kept it simple. "I'm sorry. This life is not for me. Please don't look for me. Be safe. I will always remember what we had." She didn't sign it with love, even though that's what she felt. Love so strong, it was destroying her to leave. But staying would destroy her babies, and that was something she couldn't allow. The drive from Miami to Portland, Oregon took 4 days. Naomi stopped at cheap motels and cried herself to sleep every night. She kept her old phone on for the first day, watching as Minjun's calls and texts came through, first confused, then desperate, then angry. "Where are you? Naomi, please answer me. Just tell me you're safe. I don't understand. What did I do wrong? Please come back. We can fix whatever's wrong. I love you. Please just talk to me." Each message was a knife to her heart. But she thought about Sung-ho and Dae-jung, about their families in hiding, about the life of constant danger her twins would face. On the second day, she turned off the phone and threw it in a gas station trash can. Portland was grey and rainy, the complete opposite of sunny Miami. Naomi found a small apartment in a quiet neighbourhood and got a job at a local clinic using her nursing credentials. She changed her phone number, closed her old social media accounts, and became a ghost. At night, alone in her new apartment, she would lie in bed with her hands on her growing belly and cry. She missed Minjun so much it felt like a physical wound. She wondered if he had found her note, if he understood, if he hated her now. "I'm sorry," she would whisper to the babies. "I'm so sorry you'll never know your father, but I'm keeping you safe. That's what matters." The pregnancy was difficult without Minjun. Morning sickness left her weak and shaking. Her body ached as it changed to accommodate 2 growing babies. She went to doctor appointments alone, heard their heartbeats alone, saw their ultrasound images alone. Sometimes she would catch herself reaching for her phone to text Minjun about something funny that happened, or to tell him how much the babies were kicking. Then she would remember that she had cut all ties, that she had made herself disappear. Back in Miami, Minjun was going insane trying to find her. He hired every private investigator in the city. He used all his connections, both legal and illegal, to search for Naomi. He checked hospitals, police reports, morgues. He thought maybe she had been kidnapped by his enemies, and the note was forced. He interrogated anyone who had ever met her. He went to her apartment and found it empty, the landlord saying she had broken her lease and disappeared. He questioned her co-workers at the hospital, but none of them knew where she had gone. Months passed. Naomi's belly grew larger, and soon she couldn't hide the pregnancy anymore. Her new co-workers asked about the father, and she told them he had died before he knew about the babies. It was easier than explaining the truth, and in a way, it felt true. The Minjun she had loved was dead to her now, existed only in memories and dreams. She bought baby clothes and furniture for 2. She painted the nursery in her small apartment a soft yellow. She read parenting books and took childbirth classes, sitting alone while couples held hands around her. At 7 months pregnant, Naomi was walking to her car after a shift when she saw a black SUV that looked exactly like the ones Minjun's men drove. Her heart stopped, and she ducked behind another car, watching as it drove past. It was nothing, just a random vehicle. But the fear stayed with her for days. She became paranoid, always looking over her shoulder, wondering if Minjun would find her. Part of her desperately wanted him to show up and tell her everything. Would be okay, that he would leave his dangerous life and they could be a real family. But the rational part of her brain knew that was a fantasy. Minjun had said it himself. He was trapped in his world until it killed him. She couldn't let it kill her babies too. When Naomi went into labour 3 weeks early, she was terrified and alone. The nurse held her hand while she pushed, and Naomi screamed, not just from physical pain, but from the emotional agony of missing Minjun, of wanting him there to meet his sons, because they were boys. 2 perfect, beautiful boys with dark eyes like their father and her smooth brown skin. The nurse placed them in her arms, and Naomi sobbed with joy and grief mixed together. "What are their names?" the nurse asked gently. Naomi looked down at her sons, at the tiny lives she had protected by running away. "Kofi and Taiwo," she said, choosing traditional Nigerian names. She wanted them to know where they came from, even if they would never know their father. That night, holding her sleeping twins, Naomi made herself a promise. She would give these boys a good life, a safe life. She would love them enough for 2 parents, and she would never, ever let Minjun's world touch them. But in Miami, Minjun sat in his dark penthouse, surrounded by photos of Naomi that his investigators had found. He had aged years in the months since she left, his face harder, his eyes colder. He had almost given up the search 12 times, but something kept him going, some instinct that told him she was still out there. Find her, he told his newest investigator, a man who specialised in finding people who didn't want to be found. "I don't care how long it takes or how much it costs. Find Naomi." Because Minjun knew something Naomi didn't know. He would never stop looking. Not in a year, not in 5 years, not in 10. She was his heart, and he would search for her until his last breath. The game of hide and seek had only just begun. Naomi watched Kofi and Taiwo chase each other around the playground, their laughter carrying across the cool Portland afternoon. They had just turned 4 years old last week, and every day they looked more like their father. Kofi had Minjun's serious expression when he concentrated on building sandcastles. Taiwo had inherited that devastating smile that could charm anyone. "Mommy, look how high I can climb," Taiwo shouted from the jungle gym, his dark eyes sparkling with pride. "Be careful, baby," Naomi called back, her heart in her throat the way it always was when her boys did anything remotely dangerous. "I'll catch him if he falls," Kofi said seriously, positioning himself below his brother. Even at 4 years old, Kofi was the protective one, always watching out for Taiwo, who was more adventurous and reckless. A woman sitting on the bench next to Naomi smiled. "Your boys are beautiful. They must get those gorgeous eyes from their father." Naomi's chest tightened the way it always did when someone mentioned the boy's father. "Yes," she said softly, "they have his eyes." "Is he still in the picture?" the woman asked, then quickly added, "Sorry, I don't mean to pry. I'm a single mum too, so I understand if it's complicated." "He doesn't know about them," Naomi admitted, the truth slipping out before she could stop it. "He was a good man, but his life was dangerous. I had to leave to keep the boys safe." The woman nodded sympathetically. "That must have been incredibly hard." "It was," Naomi whispered, watching Kofi help Taiwo down from the jungle gym. "It still is." Every single day for 4 years, Naomi had thought about Minjun. Every time Kofi furrowed his brow in concentration, she saw Minjun's face. Every time Taiwo laughed with that bright, infectious joy, She remembered how Minjun used to make her laugh. The boys were growing up smart and strong, asking endless questions about everything they saw. Why is the sky blue, Mommy? Where do babies come from? Why don't we have a daddy like the other kids? That last question broke her heart every time. Naomi had prepared a simple story for when they were old enough to ask. She told them their father was a good man who lived far away and couldn't be with them, but that he would have loved them very much if he had known about them. Did he love you? Kofi had asked with those serious, knowing eyes that saw too much. Yes, Naomi had answered honestly. He loved me very much, and I loved him. Then why did you leave? Taiwo wanted to know. Because sometimes love isn't enough to keep people safe, Naomi had explained, pulling both boys into her lap. Sometimes you have to make hard choices to protect the people you love most. Life in Portland had settled into a comfortable routine. Naomi worked at a small community clinic where she took care of families who couldn't afford expensive hospitals. The pay was less than Miami, but the work was fulfilling. Her co-workers were kind, and she had made a few friends, though she never let anyone get too close. She couldn't risk someone from her past finding her through casual connections. The boys attended a good preschool near their apartment. Naomi lived simply, saving every extra penny for their future. She didn't go out much, didn't date seriously, didn't do anything that might draw attention. She had become a ghost, exactly as she had planned. But loneliness was a constant companion. At night, after putting the boys to bed, Naomi would sit by her window and remember Minjun's touch, his kisses, the way he had made her feel like the most important person in the world. She wondered if he had moved on, if he had found someone else to love. The thought made her sick with jealousy, even though she had no right to feel that way. She had tried dating a few times. A kind accountant named Robert, who took her to nice restaurants and never asked complicated questions. A firefighter named Derek, who was great with the boys and made her laugh. A teacher named Marcus, who wrote her poetry and called her beautiful. But none of them were Minjun. None of them made her heart race or her skin burn with desire. None of them looked at her like she was their entire world. After a few dates, she would make excuses and end things before they got serious. It wasn't fair to these good men to pretend her heart was available when it still belonged to someone 4 years and 3,000 miles away. You're going to end up alone if you keep pushing away every decent guy who shows interest. Her friend Tamara from work said one day during lunch, Robert was perfect for you. Stable job, good with kids, actually wanted a relationship. He was nice, Naomi agreed, but there was no spark. Spark is overrated, Tamara argued. Stability and kindness matter more in the long run. But Naomi had experienced both spark and depth with Minjun, and she couldn't settle for anything less, even if it meant being alone forever. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Miami, Minjun had become someone even his own men barely recognized. The warmth that Naomi had brought out in him had frozen over, leaving behind a man who was brilliant, ruthless, and emotionally distant. His empire had expanded significantly in 4 years. He controlled more territory, had more money, commanded more respect and fear than ever before. But success meant nothing without Naomi to share it with. Boss, the shipment from Seoul arrived safely. His second in command, a man named Jen, reported during a meeting, and the Hernandez cartel has agreed to our terms for the Florida territories. Minjun nodded, barely listening. His mind was elsewhere, the way it always was these days. Boss, Jian said carefully, are you all right? Fine, Minjun replied shortly. Anything else? Jian hesitated, then took a risk. The men are worried about you. You haven't been yourself since she left. Minjun's eyes went cold and dangerous, That topic is not open for discussion. With respect, sir, it's been 4 years. Maybe it's time to accept that she's gone and move on. In a flash, Minjun had Jian pressed against the wall, his forearm across the other man's throat. I will never accept it, he said in a deadly quiet voice. I will never move on, and if you value your life, you will never suggest it again. He released Jian and stepped back, breathing hard, trying to control the rage and pain that was always boiling just beneath his surface. I'm sorry, boss, Jian gasped, rubbing his throat. I just hate seeing you like this. Minjun's anger deflated. I know, but she's out there somewhere. I can feel it, and I'm going to find her. He had spent a fortune on private investigators over the years. The first year, he had been certain she would turn up quickly. Women didn't just disappear, especially not pregnant women, which he had finally figured out was the most likely explanation for her sudden departure. One of Naomi's co-workers at the hospital had eventually admitted that Naomi had seemed different in the weeks before she left, tired, nauseous, emotional. Minjun had put the pieces together. She had been pregnant and had run to protect their child from his dangerous world. The realization had nearly destroyed him. He had a son or daughter out there somewhere, growing up without knowing him, a child that Naomi was raising alone because she thought his world was too dangerous. She had been right, of course, but that didn't make the pain any less sharp. Year 2 had been harder. The investigators found nothing. It was like Naomi had simply ceased to exist. No credit cards, no phone records, no hospital visits, nothing. She had been incredibly careful to cover her tracks. Year 3, Minjun had considered the possibility that something terrible had happened to her. Maybe she had died in childbirth or been killed by one of his enemies, and her body had never been found. Those dark thoughts had driven him to the edge of madness. He had become more violent, more reckless, not caring if he lived or died. Now, in year 4, he had hired the best investigator in the country, a woman named Sarah Chen, who specialized in finding people who didn't want to be found. She was expensive, thorough, and didn't take no for an answer. I'm checking every small clinic and hospital in the Pacific Northwest, Sarah reported during their weekly call. If she's working as a nurse under her real credentials, I'll find her. The Pacific Northwest is a big area, Minjun said, trying not to get his hopes up. She would want to be far from Miami, but not so far that the culture shock would be too extreme. Portland, Seattle, these cities have good medical facilities and diverse populations where she wouldn't stand out. I have a good feeling about this region. Minjun ended the call and walked to his penthouse window, staring out at Miami's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there, Naomi was living her life without him. Maybe she had moved on. Maybe she was happy. Maybe she had found someone else to love. That last thought made him want to destroy something. The idea of another man touching Naomi, kissing her, being a father to his child, it was unbearable. I'm coming for you, he whispered to the night. I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to find you, and when I do, I'm never letting you go again. Back in Portland, Naomi was putting the boys to bed when Kofi looked up at her with those 2 knowing eyes. Mommy, do you think our daddy ever thinks about us? Naomi's throat tightened with emotion. I think if he knew about you, he would think about you every single day. I wish we could meet him, Taiwo said sleepily. Even just once. Maybe someday, Naomi said, though she knew that day could never come. She kissed both boys good night and retreated to her own room. She pulled out the single photo she had kept of Minjun hidden in the back of her closet. It was from their time together, a candid shot she had, taken of him laughing at something she had said. He looked young and happy and completely different from the dangerous man the world saw. I'm sorry, she whispered to the photo, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm sorry I took your sons from you. I'm sorry I ran, but I had to keep them safe. You understand that, don't you?" The photo didn't answer, but Naomi imagined Minjun would understand. He had told her himself that his world was built on death and violence. He wouldn't want that for his children. He would want them safe, even if it meant never knowing them. At least, that's what she told herself to make the guilt bearable. What Naomi didn't know was that Minjun would never understand, would never accept it, and would never stop searching. The distance between them was shrinking with every passing day, and soon, very soon, their carefully separated worlds were going to collide with explosive force. Sarah Chen's email arrived on a Tuesday morning with a subject line that made Minjun's heart stop. Found her. He opened the attachment with shaking hands. It was a photo from a Portland Community Centre's website, advertising their summer program. In the background of a group shot, partially hidden behind other families, was Naomi. She looked older, more tired, but unmistakably her. And holding each of her hands were two small boys with dark hair and features that Minjun recognized instantly because he saw them every time he looked in the mirror. His sons, twin sons, 4 years old, and he had never known they existed. Minjun stared at the photo for a full hour, memorizing every detail. The boys were beautiful, with Naomi's warm brown skin and his facial structure. One of them was laughing, his face open and joyful. The other looked more serious, almost protective of his brother. They were perfect, and they were his, and Naomi had kept them from him for 4 years. Rage and love battled inside his chest, both emotions so powerful he couldn't breathe. He wanted to scream, he wanted to cry, he wanted to fly to Portland immediately and demand answers. So that's exactly what he did. 8 hours later, Minjun stood at the edge of a Portland playground, watching Naomi sit on a bench while 2 small boys played on the swings. His entire body was rigid with emotion. 4 years of searching, 4 years of not knowing, and here they were, his family, the family that should have been his all along. Naomi looked different than he remembered. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans and a practical jacket instead of the pretty dresses he used to buy her. She looked like a tired single mother, which was exactly what she was, what he had forced her to become by being too dangerous to love. But even exhausted and older, she was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Minjun watched for several minutes, gathering his courage and his control. He couldn't storm over there in a rage, not with the boys present. But every second he waited, every moment he observed his sons playing without knowing who their father was, made the anger burn hotter. Finally, he walked across the playground. He saw the exact moment Naomi noticed him. Her entire body went rigid, the colour draining from her face. She stood up quickly, instinctively moving between him and the boys like a mother wolf protecting her cubs. The boys noticed her sudden movement and came running over, their young faces confused and curious. "Mommy, what's wrong?" the more serious one asked, looking between Naomi and Minjun. "Who's that man?" the other boy asked, staring at Minjun with wide eyes. "He looks scary." Minjun's heart cracked at hearing his son call him scary, but he understood. He was wearing an expensive black suit in a casual playground, and his face probably showed too much emotion. He walked closer, his eyes moving from Naomi's terrified face to the boys who were partially hiding behind her legs. Now that he was close, the resemblance was even more obvious. They had his eyes, his cheekbones, his mouth. They were undeniably his children. "Are they mine?" Minjun asked, his voice rough with emotion. He already knew the answer, but he needed to hear her say it. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. Her mouth opened and closed several times before she could form words. Boys, go play for a few more minutes. Stay where I can see you. But Mommy, the protective one started. Now, Kofi. Naomi said firmly, take your brother and go. The boys reluctantly moved away, but kept looking back at Minjun with suspicious, curious eyes. Smart kids. They knew something important was happening. The moment they were far enough away, Minjun asked again, are they mine? Naomi nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Yes. The confirmation hit Minjun like a physical blow, even though he had already known. His legs felt weak, and he had to lock his knees to stay standing. 4 years, he said, his voice shaking with barely controlled fury. 4 years you kept my sons from me. 4 years I didn't know they existed. I was protecting them, Naomi said, her voice breaking. Protecting them from your world, from the violence, from the danger. You said it yourself, Minjun. You said loving you made me a target. So you ran. Minjun said bitterly. You disappeared without a word, without giving me a choice, without telling me I was going to be a father. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I thought you were dead. I thought maybe my enemies had killed you. I searched everywhere. Spent millions, nearly lost my mind trying to find you. I'm sorry, Naomi whispered. I'm so sorry, but I couldn't risk it. Not with them. Minjun looked past her at the boys, at his sons who didn't know him. 4 years of birthdays, first words, first steps, everything, all stolen from him. What are their names? Kofi and Taiwo, Naomi said softly. Nigerian names. Kofi is the serious one. Taiwo is more adventurous. They look like me, Minjun said, his anger mixing with overwhelming love and loss. Yes, Naomi agreed. Every day they look more like you. It's been torture, seeing your face in theirs and knowing you weren't there. Because you chose that, Minjun shot back. You made that choice for all of us. They stared at each other, 4 years of separation and pain and longing hanging between them. Minjun wanted to yell at her. He wanted to shake her and demand to know how she could do this to him, but he also wanted to pull her into his arms and never let go. I want to meet them properly, Minjun said finally. I want to know my sons. Naomi's face showed her internal struggle, fear and hope and regret all mixed together. They don't know anything about you, not really. I told them their father was a good man who lived far away. At least you didn't tell them I was dead, Minjun said sarcastically. I thought about it, Naomi admitted. It would have been easier, but I couldn't lie to them like that. They deserved to know you existed, even if they couldn't meet you. Well, now they're going to meet me, Minjun said firmly. Call them over. Naomi hesitated, then waved to the boys. They came running back, their young faces curious and slightly wary. Up close, Minjun could see even more details. Taiwo had a small scar on his chin. Kofi had the same cowlick in his hair that Minjun had as a child. Boys, Naomi said, her voice shaking. This is someone very important. This is your father. This is Minjun. Both boys' eyes went huge with shock. They stared at Minjun like he was a ghost or a superhero, something impossible that had suddenly appeared in their real life. Our daddy, Taiwo whispered. Our real daddy. Minjun dropped to his knees, so he was at their eye level, not trusting his voice. This close, he could smell their kid smell, see the flecks of gold in their dark eyes, notice how they held hands for comfort. Yes, he managed to say, I'm your father. I know you don't know me, and I know this is confusing, but I want you to know that I never knew about you. If I had known, I would have been here every single day. Kofi, the serious one, studied Minjun's face carefully. Mommy said you lived far away and couldn't be with us. I did live far away. Minjun confirmed, shooting Naomi a look that promised they would discuss her lies later. But I'm here now, and I want to be part of your lives if you'll let me. Do you know how to play soccer? Taiwo asked suddenly, his child's mind moving quickly from shock to practical concerns. Despite everything, Minjun smiled. I do. I can teach you. Can you stay for dinner? Kofi asked, still cautious but clearly curious. Minjun looked at Naomi, who appeared torn between terror and resignation. Can I? She nodded slowly. We should talk, properly, after they go to bed. The next few hours were surreal. They went to Naomi's small apartment, which was nothing like Minjun's Miami penthouse, but felt more like a real home than anywhere he had ever lived. The boys were initially shy, but warmed up quickly when Minjun showed genuine interest in their drawings, their toys, their stories about preschool. Naomi made a simple dinner and they sat around her small table like a normal family, except nothing about this was normal. Minjun caught Naomi watching him with the boys, her eyes full of complicated emotions. Every time their gazes met, electricity sparked between them, the same powerful attraction that had never died, despite 4 years of separation. After dinner, Minjun helped the boys build a tower with blocks, listening to them chatter about their favourite things. He learned that Kofi loved books and dinosaurs, that Taiwo loved climbing and singing, that they both slept in the same room because they didn't like being apart. When bedtime came, the boys surprised Minjun by each giving him a careful hug. Will you be here tomorrow? Taiwo asked. Yes, Minjun promised. I'm not going anywhere. After Naomi put the boys to bed, she returned to the living room where Minjun stood by the window, his body tense with everything he hadn't said in front of the children. Minjun, Naomi started, but he turned on her with 4 years of pain and fury in his eyes. How could you? He demanded, his voice low and harsh. How could you take my sons from me? How could you let me believe you were dead, or that you just didn't love me anymore? Do you have any idea what these 4 years have been like? I was scared, Naomi said, tears streaming down her face. I was terrified. Your men were being murdered. You said yourself that loving you made me a target. What was I supposed to do? Raise our babies in that world? You were supposed to trust me, Minjun shot back. You were supposed to give me a chance to protect you, to choose you over everything else, but you just ran. You didn't even give me the option. You can't leave that world, Minjun. You said it yourself. You're trapped in it until it kills you. I would have found a way, Minjun insisted. For you, for our sons, I would have burned my entire empire to the ground. Would you? Naomi challenged. Really? Because every time we were together, your phone would ring with some emergency. Someone would die or betray you or threaten you. That life never stops. It could have, Minjun said desperately. With you, I could have been different. I could have been better. They were standing close now, close enough that Minjun could smell Naomi's familiar scent, could see the rapid pulse in her throat. 4 years apart, and his body still responded to her like they had never been separated. I missed you, Naomi whispered. Every single day, I missed you, but I couldn't come back. I couldn't risk them. You should have trusted me, Minjun said again. But his anger was fading, replaced by desperate need. You should have trusted us. Then they were kissing, violent and desperate, 4 years of separation and longing exploding between them. Minjun backed Naomi against the wall, his hands in her hair, his mouth devouring hers. She kissed him back just as desperately, her fingers clutching his suit jacket. I hate you for leaving, Minjun gasped against her lips. I hate you for taking them from me. I know, Naomi sobbed, kissing him harder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They stumbled to her bedroom, peeling off clothes between kisses. Minjun's hands relearned her body, finding it softer and different after carrying his babies, but still perfect, still his. Naomi touched him with trembling fingers, whispering his name like a prayer. When they came together, it was explosive and emotional, both of them crying and kissing and holding each other like they might disappear. Years of pain and love and loss poured out through their bodies. Afterward, they lay tangled together in Naomi's bed, both breathing hard, neither willing to let go. What happens now? Naomi asked quietly. Now? Minjun said, his voice rough. Now, we figure out how to be a family. Because I'm not leaving, Naomi. I'm not walking away from you or from our sons ever again. Your life in Miami is over, Minjun interrupted firmly. I'll leave it all behind, every bit of it. For you, for them. Can you really do that? Naomi asked, wanting to believe but afraid to hope. Minjun turned to look at her, his dark eyes intense and determined. Watch me. He pulled her close, and they held each other through the night, neither sleeping, both knowing that everything had changed, but uncertain what their future would look like. In the next room, Kofi and Taiwo slept peacefully, unaware that their whole world was about to transform in ways they couldn't imagine. Minjun made the call to Miami at dawn, while Naomi still slept beside him, her hand resting on his chest like she was afraid he might disappear. He slipped carefully out of bed and walked to the living room, dialing Jian's number with steady fingers, despite the magnitude of what he was about to do. Boss, it's 5 a.m. here. What's wrong? Jian answered, immediately alert. Nothing's wrong, Minjun said quietly. Everything's actually right for the first time in years. I found her, Jian. I found Naomi. That's incredible. Where is she? When are you coming back? I'm not, Minjun said simply. I'm staying in Portland, permanently. Silence stretched across the line for several long seconds. Boss, I don't understand. Your empire, your businesses, everything you've built is yours now. Minjun interrupted. I'm officially stepping down. You've been my right hand for 8 years. You know the business inside and out. You'll make a good leader. But the other families won't accept this, Jian protested. They'll see it as weakness. They'll try to take over territories, start wars. Then handle it, Minjun said firmly. I'm giving you full authority. Tell them I'm dead if you have to. Tell them I'm in witness protection. I don't care what story you create as long as it keeps my family safe, because that's what matters now. Not money, not power, not respect, just them. He could hear Jian's shocked breathing on the other end. You really love her that much? I love her more than that, Minjun said. And I have 2 sons I just met yesterday, 4-year-old twin boys who look exactly like me and don't know anything about the life I used to live. I want to keep it that way. I understand, Jian said slowly. But boss, you need to know that not everyone is going to let you walk away peacefully. There are people who know too much about your operations, people who might see you as a loose end. I know, Minjun acknowledged. That's why I need you to handle the transition quietly. Spread the word that I disappeared, that even you don't know where I am. Give it 6 months before announcing officially that you're in charge. What about your assets, the properties, the accounts? Transfer everything to shell companies that can't be traced to Portland. Set up a legitimate trust fund for my sons that can't be connected to our old business. I'll send you the details. Minjun paused, then added, and Jian, thank you for everything. You've been a true brother. Stay safe, boss, Jian said quietly, and be happy. You deserve it. After ending the call, Minjun sat in Naomi's small living room as morning light filtered through the curtains. He was really doing this, leaving behind everything he had built, everyone he had known, the only life he had understood for 15 years. And he felt nothing but relief. Naomi found him there an hour later, wrapped in a robe, her hair messy from sleep. She looked beautiful and uncertain and hopeful all at once. "I heard you on the phone," she said softly. "Were you talking to Miami?" "Yes," Minjun confirmed. "I just gave away my empire. Officially, as of this morning, I'm nobody. Just a man with no past trying to build a future with his family." Naomi's eyes filled with tears. "Are you sure? Minjun, that was your entire life." "No," he corrected, standing and crossing to her. "You're my life. Those 2 boys sleeping in the next room are my life. Everything else was just survival. This is actually living." He kissed her softly, tasting her tears, feeling her body relax against his. When they pulled apart, Naomi was smiling through her crying. "The boys are going to wake up soon," she whispered. "We should make breakfast." "Together," Minjun said, "as a family." The next few weeks were both magical and challenging. Minjun rented a furnished apartment near Naomi's place and began the process of becoming part of his son's daily lives. Every morning he would come over for breakfast, learning their routines and preferences. Kofi liked his toast cut diagonally. Taiwo refused to eat anything green unless it was mixed with rice. The boys were initially confused by suddenly having a father, but Minjun's genuine love and attention won them over quickly. He taught them Korean words, starting with simple ones, like appa for father. He played endless games of hide and seek and soccer. He read them bedtime stories with funny voices that made them giggle uncontrollably. "You're a natural father," Naomi said one evening after the boys had finally fallen asleep, following an energetic day at the park. "I'm making up for 4 years," Minjun replied. "I'll never get that time back, but I can make sure I'm present for everything from now on." But leaving his old life wasn't as simple as making a phone call. 3 months after Minjun's arrival in Portland, a black SUV started appearing near Naomi's apartment. Minjun noticed it immediately, his instincts still sharp despite wanting to leave that world behind. "We need to move," he told Naomi that night. "Someone found me, and I can't risk them being here when the boys are around." Fear flashed across Naomi's face, the same fear that had made her run 4 years ago. "I knew this would happen. I knew your past would follow us." "Hey," Minjun said firmly, taking her face in his hands. "I will handle this, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Naomi searched his eyes, then slowly nodded. "Yes. I trust you." Minjun used his old connections one final time to identify who had sent the watchers. It was a rival gang leader who thought Minjun might return to reclaim his territory and wanted to eliminate the threat. Minjun arranged a meeting, bringing backup he hired through legitimate security companies. "I'm out," Minjun told the gang leader in a neutral location. "Completely out. I have no interest in Miami, no interest in the business, no interest in power. I just want to live quietly with my family." "How do I know you won't change your mind?" the man challenged. "Because I'm giving you this," Minjun said, sliding across information about several of his old operations that could benefit the rival's business. "Consider it a peace offering. Take what I've given you, expand your territories and leave me alone. That's the deal." The negotiation was tense, but eventually the rival agreed. Minjun walked away from that meeting, knowing he had bought his family's safety, at least for now. "Is it over?" Naomi asked when he returned to her apartment that night. "It's over," Minjun confirmed. "We're free." 2 days later, Minjun surprised Naomi by taking her to view houses. Not small apartments or modest homes, but a beautiful large house in a safe Portland neighborhood with a big backyard, good schools nearby, and enough space for their family to grow. Minjun, "This is too much," Naomi protested as they walked through the spacious rooms. "I can't let you buy this. It's not just for you," Minjun said. "It's for all of us. Our sons need a real home with space to play and grow, and I want to wake up every morning under the same roof as you." He pulled her close in the empty master bedroom, his hands on her waist. "Move in with me, Naomi. Let's be a real family." "The boys and I living with you?" Naomi asked. "People will talk. We're not married." "Then marry me," Minjun said simply. "What?" Naomi's eyes went wide. "Not right now," Minjun clarified. "I want to do this right. I want to date you properly, rebuild the trust I lost, let the boys get completely comfortable with me being their father. But eventually, when you're ready, I want to marry you. I want you to be my wife officially, not just in my heart." Naomi kissed him then, long and deep, and Minjun took that as a yes to the house at least. They moved in together a month later. The boys were thrilled with their new home, especially the big backyard where Minjun built them a playset. Naomi slowly relaxed into this new life, watching Minjun transform from a dangerous criminal into a devoted father and partner. Minjun got a legitimate job as a consultant for international businesses, using his language skills and strategic mind in legal ways. Naomi continued working at the clinic, but reduced her hours so she could spend more time with the family. They fell into comfortable routines, cooking dinners together, helping the boys with preschool projects, having movie nights curled up on the couch. 6 months after moving in together, Minjun planned a surprise family vacation to California. They spent a week on the beach, building sandcastles, playing in the waves, and being completely carefree. On their last evening, as the sun set over the Pacific Ocean, Minjun gathered Kofi and Taiwo aside, while Naomi walked along the shore. "Boys, I need your help with something very important," he said, kneeling to their level. "What is it, Appa?" Kofi asked, using the Korean word for father that they now used naturally. Minjun pulled out a small velvet box. "I want to ask your mommy to marry me. That means we would be a forever family, officially, but I need to know if that's okay with you." "You mean you'd be our daddy forever and ever?" Taiwo asked, his eyes wide. "Forever and ever," Minjun confirmed. "And your mommy would be my wife. We'd all have the same last name and be a real family in every way." "Yes!" both boys shouted together, jumping up and down with excitement. Minjun opened the ring box, showing them the elegant diamond ring inside. "I need you two to help me. Can you hold the box when I ask her?" The boys nodded enthusiastically, and together they walked down to where Naomi stood, watching the sunset. She turned as they approached, and her breath caught when she saw Minjun's expression. "Naomi," Minjun said, his voice steady but full of emotion. "4 years ago, I fell in love with you the moment I saw you. Then I lost you, and I spent 4 years searching, 4 years empty and broken. Now I have you back, and I have these 2 incredible boys who are the best parts of both of us." He dropped to one knee in the sand, and Kofi and Taiwo stood on either side of him, together, holding the ring box. "I know I'm not perfect," Minjun continued. "I know I have a past that can't be erased, but I promise you that every day for the rest of my life, I will work to be the man you and our sons deserve. Will you marry me, Naomi? Will you let me love you forever?" Naomi was crying, her hands covering her mouth, her eyes moving between Minjun and their sons. "Yes," she sobbed. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times, yes." Minjun slipped the ring on her finger while the boys cheered and jumped around them. Then he stood and kissed her deeply while the sun set behind them, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Their wedding took place 3 months later in a small ceremony with just a handful of close friends. Naomi wore a simple white dress that made her look like an angel. Minjun wore a suit, but kept touching his wedding ring like he couldn't believe it was real. Kofi and Taiwo were ring bearers, taking their job very seriously and only fighting once about who got to carry the rings first. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Minjun kissed Naomi with all the passion and love he had been holding inside for years. The small group of guests cheered, and the boys ran up to hug their parents' legs. That night, after the boys were asleep at a friend's house for their first sleepover, Minjun carried Naomi over the threshold of their home as his wife. They didn't make it further than the living room before they were tearing at each other's clothes, desperate and hungry after the emotional day. "My wife," Minjun whispered against Naomi's skin as he laid her on the couch. "You're actually my wife." "My husband," Naomi breathed back, pulling him closer. Finally mine. They made love with the same intensity they had always shared, but now it was deepened by commitment, by the family they had built, by the future stretching before them. Afterward, they lay tangled together, both crying happy tears. "I never thought I could have this," Minjun said quietly. "A real home, a family, peace. You gave me everything, Naomi." "We gave each other everything," Naomi corrected, kissing him softly. Years passed in beautiful ordinariness. The boys grew bigger and smarter, asking endless questions and keeping their parents constantly busy. Minjun never missed a school event, a soccer game, or a bedtime story. Naomi watched the man she loved transform completely, becoming someone who smiled easily and laughed often. Sometimes, late at night, Minjun would hold Naomi close and whisper thank you for running away, because it forced him to choose love over power, family over empire, peace over violence. And Naomi would whisper back that she was sorry for taking 4 years from him, but grateful that it led them here, to this perfect, ordinary, beautiful life. Their story wasn't perfect. They had started with secrets and separation, but they ended with truth and togetherness. And in the end, that's what love really was, choosing each other, over and over again, until forever wasn't long enough. Did this story capture your heart? Drop a comment below, telling me your favourite moment, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional romance stories that will make you believe in true love. What should happen next in Naomi and Minjun's story? Let me know your ideas.